when you think about U.S. elections, what are the key swing states? We all know there's only five or six that actually matter in every election the last 20 years or so. In the global power context, say there's a state and which side it flips to and aligns with can tell you where the balance of power goes between these regional power blocks, the ones that we've called out that matter. You've got the U.S., kind of representing North America, and also like being the banner carrier for the Western Hemisphere, kind of block of countries in general. You've got China representing Southeast Asia and its own sphere of influence. You've got Russia representing the Northern Eurasia, and then you've got Europe, who are probably in fourth place, like to be honest, in this regional power conflict. Not big enough or strong enough anymore to carry things. But if you look to who is the key swing state nation, I would say right now it's Brazil. Brazil's got, as we just showed, they've got the soybeans that China is dependent on. They've also got rare earth deposits that can solve the key Achilles heel. On the other side, we talked about China and the food scarcity being its own internal Achilles heel. U.S. economy, what they're lacking is actually these rare earth minerals, right? There are some deposits in the U.S. We're seeing those kind of spin up and go from greenfield projects into production, and that's where you get the developments we've seen since the Liberation Day tariffs went into effect. What do we say? Like MP materials deals, like the U.S. starting to develop its own resources and inside of its domestic lower 48, as well as across North America, and then into South America is where these things are resource rich. I didn't put this on the map, but you've got like a ton. Like if you just look at the dots on like where a high grade deposit exists for like a key, like a critical metal for that goes into the global economy and the supply chains, just look like in the coast, that little stretch of mountains from the Rockies starting in northern Canada, going down all the way. And then like it's kind of the same mountain range almost just turns into the Andes. Like it is just loaded with metals deposits. These projects, these are new world, there's only 500 years of history here. A tiny fraction of global population, tiny fraction of capital base outside of the U.S. That area is kind of the resource-rich deposit that everybody globally is going to be, attracted to and fighting over, in my opinion. So you look at Brazil, it's the critical swing state in terms of food supply, but it's also got rare earths, which if you think about BRICS, like the coalition of countries that are working together, Brazil, Russia, India, China, Brazil is leaning into the orbit of those other two regional powers, and trying to play itself off of kind of the U.S. and the Anglo-Dutch led kind of faction that's fighting for control essentially of the Western Hemisphere as its kind of regional power block.
Got it. And so
All right.
then, let's talk about then, as we're talking about power struggle, you had a slide in here that I thought was really interesting, which is a map of all the military bases
Yep.
across kind of that like northern Latin American continent. So maybe
Yep.
explain why you plug that in here.
Yeah. So first, like one other thing I want to get to.
Oh, sorry.
We're all aware of the story, like post 2008 GFC. 2 years ago, we were talking about the Evergrande real estate bubble, the Chinese, credit collapse coming from all of this housing build out for a population kind of increase that never came, right? Why did it not come? Well, your bottleneck is your food supply, right? And so, what you're looking at here, one, it's an example of malinvestment, but you can't actually fill your economy into that without your food supply, your food security needs shored up. So internally, China's at an interesting spot. As much as the West, we're coming to like our media narrative, and if you look on X, this is what you'll find: China's eating our lunch. U.S. and the West, we're in a sovereign debt, you know, flywheel, bubble, collapse, all of that. Well, China's like my point here. Talk about US, their critical dependency on rare earths and the debt problem that's materializing in all your G7 countries. That's serious. Yes, that's something to be dealt with. But China's got another, like, it's got its own problems. It's just what I want to make people aware of. So this housing, the real estate bubble, all of these property developers that have, went through the boom and bust cycle. They started letting some of those credits go bad, 2022, 2023. It's not done yet. They're gradually maintaining, or trying to like slow down the pace of that credit contraction effect. My point here is, without this cooperation from Brazil, it's really hard to keep their plate spinning. Um, so with this deal Thursday with the U.S. teaming up and Argentina aligning itself with the United States power faction, you kind of see why Xi and the CCP took this like retaliatory step, like a lashing out to the degree that they did on Thursday. It is that critical to them. All right. So my point here, all right, if there's a war, everybody thinks there's going to be a war between the US and China that takes place in Southeast Asia, right? This is going to be over Taiwan. Maybe. That could be the case. But where China's actual core dependency is, like you got to be able to feed your population, let alone feed your army. Um, and the food supply comes from increasingly South America. My point here, China could, it would be next to impossible for them to maintain a war. Like if they had to defend their breadbasket in Brazil, if they had to, it just won't work. So there's like you've got 18,000 nautical mile, supply chains, no naval bases for, the Chinese Navy to resupply, rearm themselves, etc. It just wouldn't work. It'd be like one example of this is the Russo-Japanese War in 1904, when the Russian Navy went up against the upstart Japanese Navy. Everyone expected the Russians to crush them, right? Just because, like, you look at the names. Russia was a global power at the time. Japan, no one knew them, kind of coming off of centuries of isolationism. But if you just look at where this war took place, like the Russian fleet had to traverse all the way around Africa with fewer ships, no naval bases to restock, tens of thousands of nautical miles on the journey to go up against the Japanese fleet in their own backyard. Like this war was over in one battle, right? Like the Russian Navy just got destroyed. And so the point there, if you don't have naval supply lines and you're going very far away from your home ports, like you can't win. Like it's just not going to work. And with the US perspective here, yeah, you've got ground military bases. There's dots all over this map. But the U.S. naval fleet kind of operating out of Southcom, Southern Command in Doral, Florida, projecting out of the Caribbean as its, home base of strength. This is not an option for the Chinese. Like you can't take a war to South America and expect to win. So their food supply, that is the Achilles heel I would go after with this. And so if you're thinking about even projecting aggressiveness into the South China Sea, as they've kind of been building up, the CCP has been building up over the last 10 to 15 years, you've kind of got a natural bottleneck here. Like you're totally dependent on Brazil and those food supply lines to keep your plate spinning in the air. It's going to be real hard, is my point. So US, like the rare earths are actually kind of misnamed. They're not altogether rare. It's the production and refinement that is the rare part here. The rest of the G7 countries, they don't have most of their deposits that are identified aren't actually spun up and in production. But on top of that, we don't have the refinement facilities set up to generate these things. That's a problem that can be solved in 5 to 10 years. It just takes time and capital and higher prices to make it economic for the U.S. and its friendly countries. But that's an altogether different problem than needing food and not having it. I guess full stop. So if you look at what this Argentine kind of reaction is about, go back to 2023. China was pressuring Argentina heavily to build a naval base at this Tierra del Fuego location. That was before or early in the Malay, prior to the Malay elections. So this is the Kirchnerists in power, kind of the carry forwards of Peronism. But they wanted to align themselves, or that this was the devil they were choosing, align themselves with Venezuela, align themselves economically with Iran, and ultimately what that means is aligning yourself with deeper economically in terms of integration with the Chinese. The Malay administration is the opposite of that. They're aligning themselves with the US and the old kind of Anglo-Dutch kind of trading network that really, if you just look on a map, Commonwealth countries, the key ports, key financial centers, that's the power block that Malay is leaning Argentina toward. So we'll find out which direction this takes on their October 26th elections. We'll go into those in a second in terms of what the prediction markets are saying they expect to happen. But this was a July headline from this summer prior to this $20 billion, USD swap line for Argentinian pesos. The U.S. Talks to build this naval base in Tierra del Fuego are advancing, while the Chinese kind of desires for that project are basically dead in the water.
So you're seeing the interest basically of why is this $20 billion swap line? I think maybe 40 now. Why is it so important? You're actually seeing that
Yep.
play out in real time.
Yeah. And this is where the talking heads on Bitcoin, Twitter, you follow them. This is dumb. Why are you buying the Argentine pesos? I'm sorry. There are certain things right now that you can only buy in the fiat nation state currencies. I know there's only 21 million Bitcoin, and over the long term, that will matter. But in terms of what you need now, what you need today, you can't buy this naval base at Tierra del Fuego for Bitcoin. There's only one thing you can buy that in, and you got to get it. You got to give this Malay administration, buy their Argentine pesos. They'll take your dollars, and that'll get you this naval base. But it's a matter of seeing the forest for the trees. What can you buy now with Bitcoin obviously coming to the fold down the road? But that time, we're not there yet.
Got it. And
All right. And then next you see, all right, how do you know this thing is already turning into a military flight? Like this is getting kinetic. And this is where you see the headlines that are dropping. And it's tough to take all these news headlines and piece them together into an integrated whole to understand the context of what the heck is actually going on between these great powers. What we've seen with the Trump administration, the speedboats that it's taken out, satellite guided missiles, all of that. Yesterday, we got the headline that Trump had authorized the CIA to take on the ground paramilitary action in Venezuela. Point is, the kinetic war is now shaping up in South America, like it's naval, in the Caribbean, it's onshore as well. Land combat is going to start taking place as this situation just continues to escalate.
yeah,
And with Venezuela in particular, Guyana, the neighbor, this one's about energy commodities, oil that's being developed. We won't talk about that here, but South America is the key is a key battleground in this regional power conflict, the multipolar world that everybody's well aware of. But this is where the action is developing.
Yeah, definitely a little bit of posturing as well to announce this publicly that you're going to let the CIA go in, or the CIA has been in Venezuela. So you've
Yeah.
definitely seen that. All
This
right.
also explains fully why you have Marco Rubio, Latin American, descent, Spanish speaker, to interact as your Secretary of State for diplomatic relations with all of these key players, like in the Latin American world. It's why he's there.